It took me over a year to build my online business, but running it has been a completely different game. Here are three lessons to save you time, energy, and setbacks. The first is that you need to fail fast but adjust even faster. Stop overthinking and just do. Get feedback, fix what's broken, and if it's not working, change it. The second is that burnout will wreck you. If you're working 12 plus hour days, you're doing something wrong. Focus on sustainable work habits and you'll be able to go on forever. And the third is that you are only in a rush because you think that you have to be. Deadlines are great, but don't kill your creativity forcing unrealistic expectations upon yourself. Remember, you will always win if you play the long game. Ultimately, you want to speed up your success by working smarter and not harder. If you're serious about building your music business, then you've come to the right place. My name is Gwethan, I'm an entrepreneur and a musician, and the aim of this channel is to share my wisdom and experience to improve your life. So the importance of failing fast. Building a business, it takes time, but the real game is learning how to adapt quickly. Things will always go wrong and things will also not necessarily go to plan, like they have for my situation, which I'll get onto in a minute. But if you can analyze everything that you do, even if you're making content, if you watch back your content and you analyze it and really critically and see how you can improve upon it, and don't be afraid to sort of see and identify your own weaknesses. If you can really figure out where you're going wrong and change it just as you're figuring it out, you're gonna go miles ahead of any sort of competition that you have. So for me personally, back in July, I originally launched the academy and I was going to build it week by week as I was running the seminars, and I thought it was a great idea. And then I sort of put everything to launch, and then just sort of as I did it, I realized, hang on a minute, this is not going to work. And it did not work. It nothing happened. So then I went away and I spent about 4 months building it. But the problem with that is I went into sort of full build mode and I wasn't creating any content or sort of bringing people in or engaging with potential customers and sort of those situations. I was quite isolated, and instead of putting the idea out in the public and gathering feedback to keep building on it and innovating it, I was very sort of shut away and doing it that way. So if I were to do it again, I wouldn't necessarily go into a build mode and go dark on content and everything. I would honestly document everything from the ground up. Don't feel like you have to build something amazing before you can start getting interactions with it. You know, you should sell before you build so that you can understand the demand for the product that you're building, but also really figure out what your customers are looking for and how you can ultimately provide them value. So for me, I mean, personally, I wasn't really in a headspace to be making content anyway. I just had a lot of things going on at once during those 2 months. So I didn't make any content, which has now meant that now I've launched the school properly and I've built it properly. I'm now just only now building a audience and sort of trialing and erroring my content. So my content kind of gone from, I love talking and I love providing value to people and wisdom and stuff. So originally I was trying to go with sort of this sort of musician entrepreneur stance of self-improvement, I guess. But I've kind of realized that that's just not the content I want to do. I want to make actual educational business content for the music industry. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. So within a couple weeks of me pushing out those videos, I've really watched over what I've been doing and identifying why I don't think this would work out, and just sort of seeing what here is holding me back from scaling my business. And I kind of realized that while I am a very wise person, you know, and I have sort of all of this knowledge for sort of inspiring people and helping people, I think the real value from this content and from the school as well is teaching actual practical information, you know. So that's what I've learned about myself. And with the school, I had this sort of idea for these courses that I was going to make, and they were really good, but they've kind of come from a stance where I've studied it for years, so obviously I know all of this stuff and it makes perfect sense to me. But I was thinking, to a complete beginner, it would be very tiresome and almost overwhelming. So I've incorporated AI into it, and I'm basically just gonna make every sort of single step for the student far easier. And I'm really excited to have people in and really get it off the ground essentially. But I feel like without launching at least a minimum viable version of it, I wouldn't have been able to quickly get feedback from people and quickly, see it for its entire self from my perspective and see how I can improve on it. But to be honest, I've only been launching for about 3 weeks now, 2-3 weeks. So the fact that I've already locked in my content niche and figured out where I've been going majorly wrong within the first few weeks, and I'm acting on it right now, says to me that I'm not worried about how this is going to go, because I know that I'm going to be capable of achieving everything I want to achieve. Coming on to burnout, another thing that I went massively wrong with doing this. So my original plan for launching Hendrick Academy was that I was going to do it on January the 1st. Now, this meant that I did not take a break over the Christmas holidays. My birthday was the 23rd of December. I worked on my birthday. I worked on Christmas Eve. I worked on Christmas Day. I did some work on Boxing Day. I stayed in at home, working on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day as well. And then the second I went to launch the business, on that day, I just randomly got really, really ill. Now, I know that there's loads of bugs going around and people are getting ill and it's that time of year, but it was very conveniently timed, and to me, I couldn't do anything for like 2 weeks. I genuinely, I don't watch TV, and I watched more television in 2 weeks than I have done in probably about 4 years. So yeah, I was fucked. Like, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't think. I was just in pain, and I was really ill at the same time. Like, I'm not here for sympathy, but what I'm saying is, because I just kept pushing myself and pushing myself and pushing myself without giving myself any balance or breaks, or, like I've mentioned in the video previously, I sort of didn't really have a social life either. So I just completely locked in on this business and grind and grind and grind and grind and grind. And I got a lot done. Like, genuinely, I probably got, I'd say, well over a year's worth of work done in about 3 months, which I should really give myself credit for, because I never really do, to be honest. But yeah, I really cut off the outside world and cut off everything else, and this became my entire life. And I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing, all the way through the holidays. Didn't give a fuck. And then the second I was going to launch, it just wiped me out. And yeah, I was done out. You should really see your body as an engine. You can kind of run it for a long time if you supply it with the right fuel and the maintenance and everything else, but there's going to come a point where if you run it too hard for too long, you're going to break down. Things are going to start going seriously wrong, and you could lose weeks, months, people even lose years to burnout. And also, if you don't have balance in your life and you have so much stress, then why are you even doing this? People pursue entrepreneurship as a pathway to freedom, and so why would you become a slave to your business? I am a firm believer of cutting out bad distractions and cutting out things that don't serve you and locking in on your mission. But if locking in on your mission brings you negative feelings and angst and stress and worry, then why are you doing it in the first place? Or not necessarily why you're doing it in the first place, but you're obviously doing something wrong and something needs to change. Why would you work so hard if you can't even enjoy the fruits of your labor? That's kind of where I really went wrong as well, is I sort of, every time I wasn't doing something that involved working on the business, I would just have a sense of angst and discomfort, and I don't know, it was just such a toxic headspace. I don't regret it, because like I said, I got a lot of shit done, and perhaps that is necessary for certain phases of business, but I feel like the most sustainable way forward, especially if you're a creative person working on a creative business, because creativity needs to come first above all other business tasks. And if if you burn yourself out, you're not going to feel creative for weeks. Trust me. This past weekend was the first time I've genuinely had a creative spark in me since before Christmas. And it's a shame when I've got all of these beautiful instruments and just things that I love and love the sound of, and just not even wanting to play them. When my whole business is centered around music and not even feeling inspired to make music, it was just a horrible feeling. So yeah, just take it easy. Don't feel like you're always in a rush, which I will get onto, because that's a huge factor of burnout, I believe. And yeah, just be kinder to yourself. Don't feel like you have to be grinding 24/7, because that you can only do that for so long. And the third is the illusion of time and why you feel rushed. So for me, I'll talk about this openly with the school. I don't really mind. So originally, well, I guess I gave the first example of wanting to launch the school back in July and then build it as I go, because I felt like I had to do it now. So that I realized the second I moved the deadline from launching it now to sort of early this year, just a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. And right now, the courses I've got in Hendrick Academy are a 7-day roadmap, build a business from scratch, the visionary mindset, and I'm currently working on a scaling and growth roadmap to bring the business to life, basically. But I'm bringing 2 more courses, and I wanted to have them done before the summer. The courses are going to be how to produce an album from scratch, and then how to launch an album from scratch. And I really wanted to have it out by the summer, but that means I have to, with my bandmates, I have to write an album and produce an album in like 4 months. And bearing in mind they live in the Netherlands as well, so we're all working remote, and we're only just starting to play together again after like at least a year and a half, 2 years. The creativity would have just suffered if I put this massive deadline on finishing this album and these 2 courses by the end of June. I wanted to do it. Then the album will be nowhere near as good, and then the value to our students would be nowhere near as good. So I've set the deadlines to the end of the year, and now that gives me a year. For the first half of the year, I'll just focus on helping people through the programs that I've already made and not just move on to something else. And then it will also mean that launch an album from scratch and produce an album from scratch programs at the end of the year will be amazing. So what I'm trying to say here is I always set really tight deadlines on myself. Not even tight deadlines, like a few months away, but they're almost unrealistic. I pack huge deadlines, and then it causes me a lot of stress almost sometimes when I see that they're enclosing and the work, because I hold myself to a really high standard for the work that I produce, and these programs that I'm making, I want them to be genuinely valuable. I'm not just here to make money, I'm here to actually help people. And the second I pushed those deadlines for the other courses to the end of the year, I just felt so relieved and just had all of these new amazing ideas of how I can use this time to make it even better and better and better. So what I would recommend is, if you're new to business and entrepreneurship, you don't want to be thinking to yourself, how am I going to make £1 million in the next 2 years? You don't want to think like that at all, right? You want to really zoom out and say, I'm 24. So for me, I sort of see things to up until where I'm 30. So what do I want to achieve in 6 years? That's sort of a way healthier way of doing it than 2 years. Still set goals and achieve those goals, but don't just put huge sort of expectations and deadlines upon yourself, because again, it just causes you stress. The second that you zoom out and see it as a long game, First Man calls this the marathon mindset. The second you look at it with a marathon mindset and realize that you've got your whole life to pursue this and to grow on this, just work hard, but you don't have to achieve huge X amount of growth by Y time, because so many different factors come into play, and you don't want to be beating yourself up or stressing over an invisible deadline that people don't even know exist. I've had times where I was thinking, I have to get this video out on Tuesday, and say I'll rush it and upload it on Tuesday, and then I'm not too happy with it because I know that I rushed it and it could have been better. But no one knew that video was coming out on Tuesday. Do you know what I mean? So you almost set these deadlines and these expectations on yourself that your customers or your anyone doesn't actually know about. So what I'm trying to say is just have more flexibility in the time frames that you set yourself, and don't feel like you're in a rush, because ultimately Rome was not built in a day, and great things take a lot of time. There's no escaping that. If you try and take shortcuts, they're actually longer, because when you take shortcuts, things go wrong and then you get setbacks, which then means you get to the destination in more time, not less time. So always take the long path, but still push and work at an exceptional standard. As mentioned, my name is Gwethan. If you're still watching this, I'm very impressed, because I waffle a lot, and right now this video is 22 minutes long. Probably be shorter once I edit it, but still, I'm very impressed. If you got any value out of this video, please like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.